Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The White House is defending the Pentagon over allegations it carried out war crimes during an attack on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean. Last week, the Washington Post reported U.S. forces sank a vessel with 11 people aboard during a September 2nd strike, then launched a second strike to kill 2 survivors as they clung to the smoldering wreckage of their boat. On Monday, the White House confirmed the second strike occurred, but claimed the order to kill the survivors of the initial attack came not from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, as the Washington Post reported, but from Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, who at the time was the head of JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command. This is White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt.
With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. On Monday evening, Pentagon Secretary Hegseth wrote on social media, quote, "Let's make one thing crystal clear. Admiral Mitch Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support," unquote. His comments came after Democrats and some Republican lawmakers said Hegseth may have committed war crimes if he ordered U.S. forces to attack survivors. We'll have more about war crimes on the high seas after headlines. We'll speak with Georgetown law professor David Cole. Israeli forces killed 2 Palestinian teenagers in separate incidents Monday as they carried out raids across the occupied West Bank. In Hebron, soldiers fatally shot 17-year-old Mohamed Tarek Mohammed al-Zugair, whom they accused of carrying out a car-ramming attack that injured an Israeli soldier. Elsewhere, 18-year-old Mohammed Raslan Mahmoud Asmar was shot during a raid on his village northwest of Ramallah. Witnesses say the teen was left to bleed out as Israeli forces barred Red Crescent medics from approaching. The soldiers then seized his lifeless body. Last week, the United Nations reported more than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli settlers and soldiers in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem since October 7, 2023. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Israeli forces killed at least 1 person in the Burej refugee camp Monday in the latest violation of the ceasefire deal that took effect on October 10th. In another violation of the truce, Palestinians report Israeli forces continue to cross the so-called yellow line on a near-daily basis. This week, a coalition of 12 Israeli human rights groups concluded in a new report that 2025 has already become the deadliest and most destructive year for Palestinians since 1967. Pope Leo is in Lebanon, the nation with the highest proportion of Christians in the Middle East, as part of his first foreign trip as pontiff. Earlier today, he held Mass at the site of the 2020 Beirut port explosion, which killed hundreds of people and injured thousands. Pope Leo also met with the families of those killed in the explosion.
In an age when coexistence can seem like a distant dream, the people of Lebanon, while embracing different religions, stand as a powerful reminder that fear, distrust, and prejudice do not have the final word, and that unity, reconciliation, and peace are possible.
Before arriving in Lebanon, Pope Leo over the weekend said that a solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict must include a Palestinian state. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asked Israeli President Isaac Herzog to grant him a pardon from corruption charges and to bring an end to his trial. Netanyahu has been charged with fraud and accepting bribes in 3 separate cases accusing him of exchanging political favors with wealthy supporters. On Monday, protesters gathered outside the Tel Aviv courthouse where Netanyahu's trial is being held.
There's no such thing as being exonerated from files from being a criminal. And he is a criminal, and he should be standing on trial just like every other citizen in Israel.
Netanyahu is the only sitting prime minister in Israeli history to stand trial. President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and son-in-law Jared Kushner are set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow today. Witkoff and Kushner are expected to offer Putin a U.S.-backed peace proposal that was revised during negotiations between American and Ukrainian officials in Miami over the weekend. This follows reporting from the Wall Street Journal on Witkoff's October meeting with Kirill Dmitriev, head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund and Putin's hand-picked negotiator. Dmitriev reportedly offered a plan for U.S. companies to tap nearly $300 billion of Russian central bank assets frozen in Europe. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met French President Emmanuel Macron Monday and is in Ireland today for meetings. Amidst the diplomatic activity, Russia launched a missile attack on the Ukrainian city of Dnipro, killing 4 people and injuring 40. Meanwhile, Putin is claiming victory after Russian forces captured the Ukrainian town of Pokrovsk in the eastern Donbas region after fierce fighting for over a year. Pokrovsk was once a strategic logistics hub for the Ukrainian army. President Trump vowed there will be, quote, hell to pay in Honduras if election officials tampered with the results of Sunday's presidential elections after threatening to cut off U.S. aid to Honduras if his favored candidate doesn't win. As of Tuesday morning, just over half the ballots have been counted, and it's not clear when a final result will be announced. Trump-backed candidate Nasser Asfouda of the right-wing National Party held a razor-thin lead of just 515 votes over his rival, Salvador Nasrallah. This comes as President Trump pledged to pardon Honduras's former president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who's currently serving a 45-year jail term in the U.S. for cocaine trafficking. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Sunday, President Trump was asked why he would pardon a convicted drug trafficker.
You've made so clear how you want to keep drugs out of the U.S. Right. Can you explain more about why you would pardon a notorious drug trafficker?
Well, I don't know who you're talking about. Which
Juan
one?
Orlando Hernandez.
Well, I was asked by Honduras, many of the people of Honduras, they said it was a Biden setup.
In Haiti, heavily armed gangs killed nearly a dozen people as they set fire to homes and forced hundreds of survivors to flee over the weekend. The attack took place in Haiti's central region. Half the area is now under gang control. One of Haiti's police unions called it, quote, one of the greatest security failures in modern Haitian history, unquote. This comes as the Trump administration announced it's ending temporary protected status, TPS, for 340,000 Haitians living in the U.S. by February 3rd. In Indiana, Republican lawmakers have unveiled a new voting map that's designed to hand their party all 9 of Indiana's seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. The new map would divide districts in Indianapolis and the Chicago suburbs that have consistently voted for Democrats and are home to Indiana's largest concentrations of non-white voters. Indiana Democrats blasted the maps as racially gerrymandered and introduced a bill seeking to ban mid-decade redistricting. This comes amidst Republican efforts to redraw maps in Texas, Missouri, Utah, Ohio, North Carolina, and elsewhere. Meanwhile, some Democratic-controlled states, led by California, are moving to redistrict congressional maps in favor of their party. In Tennessee, voters in the state's 7th congressional district are casting ballots today in a special election to replace Republican Congressmember Mark Green, who resigned from Congress in July to pursue a business venture. Republican Matt Van Epps faces a strong challenge by Democratic State Representative Afton Bain in a district that President Trump won by 22 percentage points last November. On Monday, House Speaker Mike Johnson flew to Tennessee to rally support for Van Epps, with President Trump calling in via speakerphone to endorse him. A federal appeals court has ruled President Trump's former personal attorney, Alina Habba, is serving unlawfully as U.S. Attorney for New Jersey. In their unanimous ruling Monday, 3 judges with the U.S. Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the Trump administration broke the law as it maneuvered to keep Habba installed as the top federal prosecutor in New Jersey after her 120-day interim appointment expired in July. This comes just days after a federal judge ruled that acting U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, another former Trump personal lawyer with no experience prosecuting criminal cases, was also installed to her position unlawfully. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said 3 of his offices in New York were targeted with emailed bomb threats alleging the 2020 election was rigged, with the subject line MAGA. This comes as Arizona Democratic Senator Mark Kelly announced he and his wife Gabby Giffords have been receiving more death threats since President Trump called for his execution after Senator Kelly and other Democratic lawmakers urged U.S. service members to refuse illegal orders.
We take these threats very seriously, and I take, the threats from this president seriously. How many times in our country's history have you heard a president of the United States say that members of the Senate and the House should be hanged and executed? I can't think of one.
We'll have more on this story after headlines. And President Trump has commuted the 7-year prison sentence of private equity executive David Gentile, who defrauded over 10,000 investors of around $1.6 billion. Gentile was convicted of securities and wire fraud last year and was just days into serving his prison sentence. According to prosecutors, his victims were described as small business owners, farmers, veterans, teachers, and nurses. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.